folks, welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys are new, thank you for stumbling across this show. I'm not famous, but I am glad that you're taking a risk on a show that maybe you've heard about from somebody or maybe stumbled across and thought it looked cool. So I appreciate you being here, because taking the time to try something new in this pop culture zeitgeist of 2018 means a lot. So thank you for being here. I'm really excited about today's show because my guest today is rapper MC Lars. Lars is a guy I have been a fan of since I think I was a freshman or a sophomore in college. A friend of mine turned me onto his music through MySpace, and it was the first time I had heard anybody rapping about like either English literature or pop culture stuff, or referencing emo bands and sampling the kind of bands I was listening to. So it was kind of a revelation, and I talked to him a bit about this. Being able, if you've ever had a chance to like meet someone that you're a big fan of, and then actually get to sit and talk with them about stuff and find out that you have a lot of shared interests, it was really, really exciting. And I'm so glad I got to do this. I actually had gone and seen Lars do a show at Gold Sound in Bushwick in Brooklyn, and with Schaefer the Dark Lord, and it was a fantastic show. And he was cool enough to want to sit down and chat, and we have a great conversation about music, all kinds of different kinds of music. We talk a lot about the Insane Clown Posse. If there are any juggalos listening to this, thank you. Woot woot. Because he just played Dark Carnival Gamescom, their gaming convention in Denver, and we talk a lot about how he discovered them and all of the kind of regional nature of hip hop and underground independent music earlier and back in the day, and then what it is like being an independent artist on the internet in 2018. And I think I might have caught MC Lars. I think I might have caught him off surprise with one of the things I bring up. It happens pretty early in the interview, so if you go and check out his YouTube channel, you can find the video I'm referencing. But if you're not familiar with MC Lars, check out his multiple albums on iTunes. You can sign up for his Patreon, get new songs every month. It's more topical stuff. And if you guys enjoy the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher, or you can follow me on Twitter at ComicWillCarey. If you want to give me a follow and say, hey, I would love to hear from you. So thank you guys so much for listening. And let's go to my chat with MC Lars. I'm so happy to share this with you guys. With MC Lars, like there's that like specific like public radio style compared to like
real sensitive.
Yeah, like real sensitive. Like you can just feel the tweed patches on the jacket.
I know how Mark Maron is always like, "Oh, we've been recording. Yeah, man, we started 10 minutes ago."
Yeah, I love dude stuff because it's more organic. I think.
Are we on? Should we start? Oh, we've been recording for an hour. James Cameron.
Yeah, we already did the episode. Now this is just bonus. This is what we'll actually listen to.
That's tight,
dude. I thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Will. I love your apartment. It's beautiful.
Thank you. It's like, should I call you MC Lars or should I call you by your real name? Because I had that moment when I the night after I met you at your show in Brooklyn, I was like, and your voicemail had your real name. I was like, oh, do I call him MC Lars or do I? That's very formal.
Did I say that? And I left my real name in the voicemail.
Your voicemail says your real name. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. I usually Lars is easy. I mean, my manager calls me Lars.
Yeah.
It's Andrew is like that's my real name, and that's very. Rarely does anyone call me that. Even people like I'm really close to. It's a weird thing. Like I molted that from that personality.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Will is actually my middle name. My real first name is George, but I have no connection to that name whatsoever.
So what inspired you? Just like Will more?
Well, everyone just called me William, and then when I was in second grade, I was like, it's Will from here on out, and keep it short.
But why not George?
I don't know. Like, to me, Will is like somebody who's like an artistic, creative person, and George is like someone who's like a member of like the Young Republicans, and like he runs like he has board meetings and stuff. And I don't identify with that name at all.
I relate.
So yeah, so I'll just call you Lars then. Well, no, this is like a big deal for me because outside of like my top, like, because to me this is like, because I've been listening to you since I was maybe I think a freshman in college when I bought The Graduate on Amazon.
Dang, thank you.
Yeah, like I go way back. Like I told you, like
the actual CD.
Yeah, the actual CD.
Thank you very much, Will.
Yeah, I still have it, and that was like my first exposure to. That was my first exposure to rap that sampled bands I was listening to.
So what led you to that record? That's cool. That's cool though. Milestone.
Yeah, well, my friend of mine who was a year behind me, so he was still in high school. He was a senior in high school, and I was in my first year of college. He was like, "Hey, there's this guy. I think you should check out." He pulled up your MySpace page, and we listened to Hot Topic Is Not Punk Rock. I was like, "Oh, this is cool. This is really cool, actually." So I was like, "I need to get more of this," and I like found like all your videos. Like, this is maybe one of the biggest compliments I'll give you is I think about like how certain like pop culture things get just integrated into your everyday speech patterns. Like you might say like things are coming up Millhouse.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Okay. So I say things are for CPs pretty frequently. And
wow.
And I also if I'm like working on a song and it's not going well, I'll start playing Art is Difficult, Art is Difficult, Art is Difficult.
Those are deep references.
No, I was going like way back because I wanted to like study up, but not be like too studied up. So I went back and because I think around the time you made that particular video podcast, I had just seen Cartel at the 930 Club open for somebody. And
that dude's voice. Speaking of another Will, that dude's voice is great live.
Yeah, his voice is still really good live even after all those years. He can really sing live. I'm always impressed by people that can sound the same on the record as they do in the studio.
He's the true talent in that band. That dude.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you with that interjection.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good, man.
There's a story around that whole Cartel thing. Do you want to hear it, or should we talk about it later?
I kind of would like to hear it, and then I'm gonna trace your origin story.
Okay. So for anyone listening who doesn't know, in 2008-ish, this band Cartel, which I was on a label with, I was on a label called Sideshow that put out the Laptop EP that was affiliated with the Militia Group, which I think was one of their early labels. I might be wrong, but that was my exposure to them. And my manager at the time was like, "Look, this band like has sold so many records independently, and now they're jeopardizing their credibility by, as you know, they went and lived in a bubble down off of Wall Street or downtown."
Yeah, it was off the west side of Manhattan. I don't think it was Pier 42 or near Chelsea Piers, but it was like one of those big piers. It was this like giant enclosed Dr. Pepper sponsored TV show that MTV was making.
Yeah.
They were basically living in this clear building while they recorded their second album, and like people would pass them notes and stuff as they were.
They could see them, right? Like, or it was like edited into a reality show.
Essentially, yeah.
And so I, being this cocky kind of not very nice guy at that point, I just eviscerated them for that as it being like corporate and not punk rock. But really it was all just like a marketing move, which ultimately didn't pan out as I think they wanted it to. Like it didn't make them the next Fall Out Boy, but then they had, so that's the first part of the story. So that fall my old bass player was a college booking agent. He's still my bass player when I can work with him. But he booked this tour and was sponsored by Crocs, and it was a college tour with Cartel, me, and this rapper Young Jock. who was a rapper from Atlanta, and we were all on that tour. And then they found that video, and they were not happy about it. And it was things were very tense that whole tour. And the first night, it was it's a corporate sponsored by Crocs. And one of the guys goes, "Well, Lars, welcome to the sellout train." and I apologize for the video, but it was always very weird. And I think that, like, fortunately, I didn't get kicked off that tour, because they could have, if they talked to the right people, at Crocs.
If they were like upset, they could have pulled like a real like diva move and like gotten you thrown off.
And and props to them, they didn't. And no worries. I ran into them at Warped Tour, and they were so very nice to me, like nicer than they had to be. And so I realized that, like, you could take to task like subgenres and movements and pop culture things, but to like totally blast a band's artistic credibility, it's not cool. And I regret that. And yeah, they were cooler than they had to be. So shout out to Cartel.
Yeah. and I'm just glad that, like, it's like so many bands, and like you especially, and like other bands I listen to, I'm just really glad that they're still like putting out records and doing shows and are still active. That's what I think is the ultimate victory, outside of like, okay, you're not the next Fall Out Boy, but do you still have a career? Yes. That's the that's the real victory, I think.
And are you still doing things that are personally meaningful?
Yeah.
Whether it's like I don't know, if it's, that's the whole thing about art. It is difficult, but it is endlessly rewarding. And if you're doing something that, even I'm impressed, like the artists who even do things while they work a day job. That's fresh as heck.
Yeah.
Like the artists who are like maybe not touring full time because they don't want to be eating Waffle House and sleeping on floors at 35, but like they are still making albums and touring sometimes,
Yeah.
I think that it's like, back when I started, it was the whole success paradigm was very binary. Either you're a full-time artist or you're not doing art. And I think now with social media and stuff, it's like there's such a gradient.
Yeah.
And
yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I absolutely felt that way before. Like when I was younger, I was definitely like, either I have my full-time job is my art, or I am a failure. That's those were like my A and B camps. But yeah, now that there's like social media, or like you have like big YouTube channels that are, so they're big enough that they're known, but not big enough where it's like they're not like I guess like the Fine Brothers might be an example of that. But yeah, the ultimate victory, I think now, and maybe you'll agree with this, is are you doing things that are interesting to you, or are you doing something because you know it'll get traction, or it'll go viral, or like the sequel's coming out, so you got to make fun of the first movie kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think in the past few years, my realization has been like, I did a Game of Thrones song and I did a Rick and Morty song, and like both those came from an organic love of like what I was referencing, but there's always this inclination to be like, what's trending? How can I write about it? How can I increase my audience? And that is not organic, and that's boring. You know what I mean? To me, unless there's like a specific reason to talk about something. That's why I like writing about literature, because it's timeless. And I think that, I think it's like a really dark place when you create art for the Instagram likes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Instagram likes, or the YouTube ad revenue, or
which is ultimately, like, YouTube might decide one day that rap music you can't monetize because it's controversial. It's like I'd never want to be at the mercy of something that can like quickly unvalidate what I've created. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in a second, like a tornado destroying your house.
Yeah, like the advertisers just decide we're done with rap, so all the rappers there, you no longer have an income stream
because it's controversial and it's not in line with what Dr. Pepper wants. and that's the interesting thing, man, because like you and I, like growing up and seeing the world change. I mean, it's like things are, there was a point where you could feel like you could be DIY and anti-corporate like 10 years ago and use the internet. Now you're really at the behest of Facebook and YouTube and how your stuff is revealed unless you're making friends hand to hand on tour. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you really are at the mercy of these platforms. Whereas like you mentioned, you've heard me on MySpace. Like that was, I don't know, that was more organic. I wasn't really paying for advertising. It was just I put the song there and it got
and then people would find it.
And here we are.
Yeah. 12, 14 years later, because like I saw you at the last time I've seen you live twice now. First time was at the Auto Bar in Baltimore, Maryland, when I was still living there.
Yep.
And I think I was talking to you. You were telling me about Wesley Willis during the sound check, and you had a full band with you. And then next time, 12 years later, is in Bushwick, and still doing awesome songs, being super joyful. That's something that that Schaefer the Dark Lord bring up, and then I'm kind of interested in the genesis of Lars. He says, because we were talking about how I was saying like I had so much fun at the show that you did at Gold Sounds. And
by the way,
like,
thank you for coming.
Oh, no problem.
Appreciate that.
Dude, no problem at all. I was like, holy shit, I could go to that. And we were like doing the zombie walk, and I was like, I was just like, Lars seems, I was telling Schaefer, I was like, Lars seems like he is just having the best time all the time. And then he was like, and what you don't know is that continues after the show in the van to the hotel.
Yeah.
He is always like that. And I was like, that just made me feel so good to hear.
That's cool. Shout out to Schaefer the Dark Lord.
Oh man, I can't wait for it. He says he's putting a new record out in the fall. I'm looking forward to it.
That fool is that. Talk about an artist who has a day job and kills it more than any indie artist I know. Really, you know, his stuff is so consistently sharp, and he's a true success. I love him.
And he wears suits on stage, and
he wears suits, and he has like he'll be backstage like ironing his tie. I don't know many rappers who do that.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I mean, comedians will wear a suit for like the late night spot, but I'm like, if that ever happens for me, I'm like, well, do I want to do that? Maybe I could rock the suit and t-shirt, jacket and t-shirt look.
That's tight.
So I'm curious, like, where you come from. You're from the Bay Area, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, I grew up in Oakland, California, and then middle school onward, I lived on the Central Coast, kind of near Santa Cruz, which is south of the Bay, about an hour. So yeah, Northern California is my blood. Yeah.
Do you have many memories of Oakland in that time?
You know, dude, it was an era. That's an interesting like question, because like it was an era of there were a lot of traumas, because when I was 7, there was this giant earthquake. I don't know if you heard the 89 earthquake, which kind of like the Bay Bridge collapsed.
Yeah.
It was, and then I was like, what the World Series was on, and they had the A's were playing the Giants, and the Giants were ahead, and then they had to cancel the game, and then they rescheduled it, and the A's ended up winning the World Series, and like the Giants fans were always like, well, the Giants would have won the World Series if it weren't for that.
Earthquake.
And so like traumatic stuff like that was just like part of growing up then. And then there was a huge fire in 91 when I was 8, where like half of my friends lost their houses. The Oakland Hills fire was like this huge.
Oh, damn.
So there was a lot of like little I don't know. Oakland always felt, you know, and it's also a very divided place, and I always felt a little bit unsafe as a kid. Do you know what I mean? Because it's traumatic situations. But
was it like a crime-heavy area?
It became increasingly.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the Oakland Hills, which is like was a little safer. But you know, there's always, I don't know. You're always told to be very careful, and I guess that's with every kid. But like, yeah, the Bay Area is crazy, but it's also a very inspiring, beautiful place, a very diverse place.
Yeah.
And it was like growing up, like, you know, like listening to punk and hip hop music. Like there was, you'd go to a Too Short show or a Rancid show. Like that's what they always say. Like there was that, everything was kind of mixed because it's such a culturally mixed place.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like Asian culture, African American culture, Hispanic culture, all in one place, because there are a lot of people moved there during World War II to build ships because there was Oakland was a port, and so then a lot of cultures stayed there, which is I think really like special about it. You know what I mean?
Totally. Like they come there's a industry demand because of the war, and then they settle there, and then they bring who they are to that area, and that leads to the growth of the area itself. Yeah,
and the fact that the Bay Area has such a great literary history, and I mean, All this stuff, though, I didn't realize until I was older. I just knew when I left Oakland and moved down to Monterey County, I missed that flavor and that energy. And I didn't mind the earthquakes and the fires and the, you know what I mean, the parts you're not supposed to go, because Monterey was beautiful, but it was kind of boring.
Yeah, I get this idea. I've only been to California once.
Where'd you go?
San Francisco. I was there for work, and I was like, running around the Mission, going to record stores and eating burritos, and and my drummer from my high school band lives out in Oakland now, and that's why I wanted to ask you that, is because the part of Oakland that we were in, where like this restaurant Burma Superstar is, I started to feel like maybe Oakland's starting to turn the way of Bushwick. Like there's
100%.
Like there's starting to have like your locally sourced restaurants and your coffee shops and that kind of vibe. My impression of California, mostly from shows on HBO that I watched the trailer for and then like I don't know if I'm interested in that, is that there's this sort of like suburban plotting boredom that occurs. Like there was some news story I read a bunch of years ago. About a woman who made some other mom at her school angry. So this woman who she made angry decided that she's going to destroy this woman's life by planting drugs in her car. Like there's this sort of kind of like menace. Like it's so beautiful and so perfectly manicured that it just leads. There's this underlying darkness.
Yeah, I mean,
Not saying that that's what your life was
but
like.
You could say parts of Long Island might be like that too, maybe.
Yeah, I would say that.
But maybe it's like, I think when you have wealthy people and like bored people and bored kids, they get into trouble. Like that. Do you ever hear the show Pretty Little Liars?
Yes.
So that is Monterey, and so that's where I spent my middle school and high school years.
That's the show I was thinking of.
Yeah, and that is that all that stuff about like plotting moms and all that stuff is 100% like real, minus the murders. No, I'm not trying to spoil anything beyond the first few minutes of the show, but I mean, for me, that boredom, like I countered that with the love of learning how to make websites, and I was really into collecting prank call tapes, like bootlegs that people would make, and then I had like a site where I reviewed them all, and I had a very rare Jerky Boys tape. So nowhere on the internet could you find that. People, if you Googled Jerky Boys bootleg back in 94, 95, you'd find my page, and then people sent me tapes. So I had like this business I ran out of my parents' P.O. box.
Oh, really?
Because I was so bored, and like, but it was also like I was just like mischievous. But it wasn't me like doing the federal offense of recording harassing calls. But I was definitely a catalyst for like connecting people, and that's how I found a lot of the underground music I loved, because people would put, they'd fill the end of the tape with like random stuff like ICP or underground rap, which like no one in Oakland and the Bay Area, like none of my friends knew about.
Right.
Pre like file sharing. And so that was, I think if I hadn't moved to Monterey when I did, I probably wouldn't be rapping now, because I kind of like spent a lot of time alone making music and like being obsessed with this weird, mischievous art of the prank phone call.
Yeah. How old were you when you were doing that? Like, were you in your teens?
I was probably 12.
12. So you're building a website and curating prank phone calls when you're 12.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It was and then my parents were like, "Man, you get a lot of packages." But then the other crazy thing would be like bands on tour really loved the Jerky Boys, so they'd want tapes for their band, so people they wouldn't have things to trade, so they'd send cash to me, and I'd have all this like. My parents would be like, "How did you just get $100?" Oh, I don't know.
Oh my God, I didn't know this about you, and I love it.
So it was like very much and I'd go to, and then I'd use that money, and then I'd go to the bookstore and get art books on how to draw, and then I started doing cartoons. So I was funding my other hobbies, and I was just like, but I mean, it's like, gosh, it could have, Jerky Boys record label could have come after my parents, Or
right.
Maybe not. I don't know. But
that's the sign of a cool artist, I think, is like when they're when they don't come after someone's like, that's just
shout out to
cool.
the Jerky Boys, man.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If someone can get this to the Jerky Boys, that would make my day. But talking about what you're saying is like that kind of boredom is important for, I think, for for sowing the seeds of creativity. Like, I grew up in the boonies of Maryland. Like, the mall was an hour and a half drive. I didn't get my license till I was like out of high school.
What's the town?
I grew up in Lesby, Maryland, and then after my grandfather died, I moved to St. Leonard when we inherited his house. These are populations of like 800.
That's kind of dope, though, right? You're saying it inspired you to find your passion and stuff.
It helped me like it helped me realize like that old Patton Oswalt joke where he talks about the test of the small town is like, I got to find some stuff that's me. And for me, it was hearing Blink-182 for the first time. Like, I heard What's My Age Again and was like, oh, I want to learn how to make that. How do you make that sound? Oh, a guitar or a bass guitar? Okay. I guess I'll get that. And then later on, when I discovered like the Descendants, that was really big also because they're just so good because the songs are just so good. And then like I was
catchy and smart. That's why I like the Descendants.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. So you had these like punk rock touchstones that opened your eyes.
Yeah. I had like a little a little window into a culture outside of just what was around me, like what I was seeing on what my friends were talking about, because I think for a good portion of my time, I didn't have TV at my parents' house, so I was just hearing about stuff or finding stuff online.
Shout out to all the parents that like limited or did not have TV. I was never allowed to watch TV during the week. I only could watch like on the weekends, and I'd only watch The Simpsons. And I think that forced me to. Gosh, I was out of the loop on a lot of pop culture, but I'm really thankful, man. You know,
because you find like. I think that helps you find more interesting. That helps you find stuff that is not pop culture or what everyone else is talking about. That what everyone else is doing the reacts videos on or what have you. I know I'm coming off harsh on reacts videos, but I have a problem with them.
I was doing them for a minute. I was trying to like do reaction videos on whatever was trending, and my fan base was unanimously told me they hated it, so I quickly stopped. I was trying to do like satirical commentary on stuff, and fools were like, "Don't do that, Lars." And I was like, "I don't even really enjoy it that much."
So when you would that's how you would discover like because I know ICP is big for you early, so that you discovered ICP through those extra tapes on those Jerky Boys cassettes?
when I was like 13, 14, I really got into them, and that was, before anyone had really heard of them outside of Michigan, Detroit, and I felt like a big, I felt real cool to like know about this underground stuff, or like, that ICP or stuff like Dead Kennedys and Ministry. Like, there was this one dude I traded tapes with a lot who would always put cool stuff on there, and that was like, awesome, because it was CDs you couldn't even really special order at stores,
Yeah.
They didn't really have distribution. So
yeah, you basically had to buy it from them.
Yeah, at the show, really, a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which was kind of tight.
Oh, that's so cool. Can you tell me like what the first ICP song or early ICP song you heard was?
Okay, well, the first one was, the first tape I had that had an ICP song was Shaggy song Super Balls from Tunnel of Love.
Yep.
That sampled this call from the Seattle Phone Pranks where this guy's like, he's like, I want saxophone lessons. And he goes, why are you calling me at 3 a.m? He goes, because I'm only up at this time of the night. I make music of the night. Read my lips. Scary. And then so they sampled it. And so then this dude Chris was like, I recognize this call from this song. You need to check this out. This band sampled this super underground tape. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So then it would be like, what else have they done? Well, since you asked, are you a fan of them? Did we talk about this?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. Yeah. Well, we talked about how I kind of made their Canada tour happen a few years ago.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I got into them because like when I was like, okay, after I heard Blink, I was going through like a phase of trying to find myself. So I was like listening to Blink-182, Kid Rock, and then Creed and Insane Clown Posse.
Very 90s.
Very so much 90s occurring. 90s. Yeah. I discovered them late. My first two ICP albums were Bizarre and Bizarre.
Okay, good records.
Good records. Like I've been listening to one of your mixtapes with Schrodinger's cat, trying to decide if that bass line is a Tilt-A-Whirl sample or not, but it might just be similar.
Oh, wow! I didn't even.
It's not the same bass line, but it's got a similar tone.
That's interesting. You caught that.
Yeah. I got really into him. I was into. First off, it was when Jay says in that when Violent J says in that song, "Only we rap about fucking a beehive." That's true. Haven't heard another one. It was like dark lyrics and but also kind of tongue in cheek, and my sense of humor for the time. So yeah, I was into them.
And the fact that for me, I mean, I started rapping because of them. I saw a show they did. They one of their first California tours.
Oh yeah,
and it really blew my mind how they could do so much with small stage production.
Yeah, and
just them and yeah, I mean that made me want to rap. And then I started to understand all the their influences, and then I got went through a stage in college where it was well, I want to listen to more serious, traditional hip hop and stuff like Atmosphere and Sage Francis, the indie rappers who were didn't have that kind of element. But then I realized that was cool.
No
was cool about them was that they did it on their own terms, and we talked earlier about how having a corporation give your art value. They used the major record labels to grow their business, and they didn't. You know what I mean? They weren't beholden to the major labels they signed with.
Yeah, they weren't.
Tight.
Yeah, they weren't beholden to hit singles or write a particular kind of song or write a song that's going to get popular in clubs or what have you.
Yeah, and I think that it would have felt weird if they'd had a big mainstream hit, unless but they also some of their bigger songs are definitely their style. I don't know. I mean, I opened for them last weekend at their they had a gaming event in Denver.
Yeah, how was that show?
It was tight, man. They it was cool. It was we got a really good reaction. I did a freestyle over chicken hunting.
Oh, cool.
And it was it was cool to get a reaction like that from a fan base that I've always been part of, either secretly or very publicly.
Yeah,
the Juggalo fan base. But I was talking to Violent J's brother, Jump Steady, who runs the label, and he was what he always has admired about Jay is their ability to flow so differently on so many beats. Not it's never boring listening to those guys rap, because there's this pure theatrics, and good hip hop is theatrical, and I think that defines the art, and that they're finally getting that credibility they deserve. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. It's finally come around to where I think even I saw this interview they did with a Canadian DJ. I think his name is Q, where the hip hop community is first off respecting the hustle of building your own record label and not cowing down to what people giving you money want you to sound like, and just going out and handing out CDs and DIYing tours. It's very punk rock in a way, the way they kind of organically grew their fan base. And for every 10 people that told them to fuck off, there was one person that's going to be their fan for a really long time.
For life, man. Down with the clown till I'm dead in the ground. Have you read Violent J's autobiography?
I've started listening to the audiobook. I found it online.
So good.
Yeah, just some of the stories of him saying, "Yeah, the security guard punched me in the face because I was putting on flyers, but I was just trying to promote my album."
Yeah, that, and that's why he has a crooked nose.
Yeah,
because they were putting flyers on cars.
on cars at some other concert in Detroit, or even we tried to give this kid a CD, and then he shot at us because it was offensive that white guys were asking a black kid if he's into rap in Detroit in the 90s.
Right.
That's from early on. Yeah.
So you're at Carnival of Carnage era.
Yeah, early Carnival of Carnage era.
Man, it gets nuts. And he's writing a second one. It ends with the Wraith. You know, it ends with this sixth Joker's card.
Yeah.
So he's writing a second book, and Shaggy's writing a book too.
Oh, that'll be cool.
These are all things I heard from the Juggalos at their festival.
Yeah,
that'll be cool.
I would be interested to hear that because you hear, I think Jay does the lion's share of the talking in a lot of interviews and stuff, but Shaggy doesn't talk as much. So I'd be curious to hear more about his life and how he came to meet Jay. So
yeah.
So you're getting into ICP, and you said you're into punk as well, like Dead Kennedys and
yeah,
Black Flag,
let's
stuff
see.
like that.
I liked Black Flag, and I liked like, you know, the Bay Area has produced so many great punk rock bands that it's like we're so proud of all those. Operation Ivy and everything like that, you know, and
yeah.
But
I guess Green Day are
Green
a great
Day.
Bay Area band too.
Yeah,
aren't
that
they?
was something when Green Day blew up. We were all like, "Oh shoot, Green Day!" I always appreciate Green Day and the Offspring too. You know, like, but you know, the bands I guess as a kid were the bands with the big choruses. I mean, I was huge Nirvana fan.
Yeah,
like punk. Like I guess you could consider them punk in their aesthetic. And yeah, I mean, I would say Nirvana is. Jello Biafra said. Nirvana was a rock band inspired by punk.
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I loved that. I loved how Kurt Cobain was like so political and that he made me, you know, wanted to learn how to play guitar because those songs are so easy to learn.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, yo, look, and it was like Nirvana was a huge influence on me, and I still have a very special place in my heart for them, as I'm sure, you know, so many people of our generation do.
Yeah.
It changed everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was like the first. Again, that was for a lot of people. I was talking with Lavalle about this. There's like a point where like you hear like Nirvana, and then you want to find out like Nirvana's influences, and then you just go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. I compare it to like when you first start drinking coffee, you might drink like something really sweet and with a lot of whipped cream and chocolate, and then eventually you get down to like single origin espresso where the guy is like an eyedropper dripping hot water over a single bean.
Or like ICP, like wanting to know about the history of Detroit rap music.
Yeah. Yeah, like you hear ICP and then you're like, oh, they like this guy. They mention this guy Isham a lot.
Yeah, who's Isham? What's that? Yeah. Or like things that are... No, I think that's a really cool example for Nirvana. And all the bands that... Like, there's a great Spotify playlist of Kurt Cobain's 50 favorite punk records. And I play that all the time when I'm walking around. And some of that stuff I'd never heard of, you know?
Oh, I'm going to have to start listening to
pretty
that.
tight.
That sounds really cool. So when did you start playing guitar?
I started playing guitar when I was 11. I started taking guitar lessons. And, yeah, I mean, I was not the most coordinated kid, but, like, I was so determined. My parents were like, well, if you learn on an acoustic guitar and you get good, then save your money. Well, you can get an electric guitar, you know? And I was... Then I played guitar in jazz band and eventually in high school.
In high school, yeah.
And that taught me theory. How long you played?
About 10 years.
Cool.
Yeah. I would
see your basses and your guitars over there.
Yes, my guitar, the headstock broke. I got to get it fixed. But yeah, those are my basses and my acoustic. I saved for like a year to buy this acoustic. I love that thing.
That's beautiful.
I was kind of the same way, you know, started on acoustic and then I got a Stratocaster eventually.
Cool.
Because I was really determined to be the next Tom DeLonge for a while. So did you play in like rock bands before you played in rock bands before you became a rapper?
Yeah, and so I did, and I had two bands. My first band was called Horace, which then became the name of my label. And my rap name for a minute was MC Lars Horace.
Yeah.
As like a nod to that, which my first manager, Tom, very, very smartly said, just call yourself MC Lars. And I think that was the best career advice he ever gave me. And the other band was called Amphoteric, which is a chemistry term for a substance that is simultaneously acidic and basic. So like molecule water, you take off a hydrogen atom, it becomes acidic. You add one, it becomes basic. Right?
Yeah.
So like a substance that, and I was like, oh, that's a cool term. So
that's really cool. So you're like PH7.
And that was the name of our EP.
Was PH7? That's
funny.
perfect. Oh,
PH7.
That's like
I can't believe that you said that.
I was
Nerdy.
flashing back to science because I was thinking, it was like, that is a very Bay Area, I listen to Bad Religion kind of band name.
Yeah,
And I
right.
dug it.
Yeah, that was like, yeah, we imagine that it's like, you don't know what it is. It sounds like a cool name, right?
Yeah.
But I'd play shows with Amphoteric, and we'd need openers or whatever, and so sometimes I'd just bring my laptop and plug in and rap, kind of like I was very inspired by Adam and His Package. And so that was like, I'd do it as a way to open for my band, and we didn't play a lot, but on the few occasions I did, it always got a better reaction than our band did, me rapping over like the samples and stuff that you talked about. And so that was like, all right, well, maybe I'll do this for fun. So I started doing it in college, and
you were an English major, yeah?
Yeah, English major, and I studied abroad for one term in England, and I just started doing my stuff, and I was so friendly and optimistic, and met every band I could in the area, and in the 3 months I was there, performed as much as I could, opening for whoever would take me.
Yeah.
And this was like 2003, when like the novelty of being like an ironic, smart rapper with a laptop was still kind of like not very much like a played out thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like nerdcore hasn't become like a thing yet. That's not a term that people are using at this point.
Yeah, I think that I'd never heard of Front a Lot. I found out about, I hadn't heard about MC Chris. Like, I knew MC Paul Barman, who was incredible, and he was a big influence on me. And nerdcore. But then I got back, and when I got back to the U.S., and I ended up getting like a record label distribution offer from a label there, which was cool because it was like an inroad into something else. What were you gonna say? Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you start rapping, and then do you leave the Amphoteric at that point, and then, or like, I'm gonna pursue the rap thing?
Yeah, they kind of they college happened. You know how that goes. And like we all were in different places, and the band kept going with different members. But I still did shows with them, but not in. I didn't. Maybe I'd play one song with them, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, you start kind of like you kind of have your other things you want to focus on, and then so you're like less and less, and then eventually it just kind of trails off.
It wasn't fresh. It wasn't fresh to be doing like pop punk music with three of my friends, but rapping by myself was cost effective and felt fresh in 2003.
Yeah.
It felt different.
Yeah. If I'm thinking about 2003, like that's where, like, I guess the next generation of the wave of emo is getting ready to crash with like the first couple Census Fail records. But yeah, it was, or I think, or like, just cause I know you sampled it for one of my favorite songs, you do brand new. Like, all that stuff is
that record hit in 2003, the Deja. And the thing that really opened a million doors for me was their manager their manager heard this album I did and saw I was touring in the UK, and then I worked with that dude for 5 years, this guy Tom Gates, who not only cleared that sample but also like brought so many amazing opportunities because he had the freshness of what they were doing, and he was like, oh well, here's this rapper guy who's like the Beastie Boys who loves this music. And that was like, in terms of getting on tour, was such a huge door. But it was also like, the novelty of it, I think went far.
Yeah.
The fact that it was like I was occupying the space that was special at the time and wasn't played out yet to be like, I don't know, Lonely Island, I love them, but I think pretty soon it was like goofy rap became the norm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love Lonely Island, but like,
I love them too. I thought Popstar was very funny.
I think that movie is genius.
Yeah, I laughed so hard.
I think they changed everything where, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, every rapper, then the whole point was to be silly. You know what I'm saying? With hip hop. If you were sounding like me or looking like me. And I think that I tried to make it, I wanted to be funny without being a joke. But then they showed that you could be incredibly funny and just do comedy rap on YouTube. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the world became different after that Lazy Sunday song.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I think I do actually, because that song and those videos got so popular that becomes like everyone's new idea of what like funny rapping is.
And because they did it so well.
Yeah. And and it's not like the music isn't the music and the beats aren't a throwaway. Like I have a bone to pick with a lot of musical comedy where the music is a throwaway or an afterthought. But you could put some, but like but there's clearly a lot of thought put into the musical part of it as well.
And their videos then became so awesome.
Yeah.
That was, what's my point? My point is that like back in the day, like that was, I don't know. It was what I was doing. I didn't consider comedy rap, but I guess it could have also been that too. And then I saw them and I was like, oh, I don't want to be like ridiculously silly. I want to like be funny, but not make it all about the lols, the
right.
CPs.
You're not all about the CPs. Yeah. The how I would describe the difference between you is you're a rapper who is funny, and they're comedians who rap. I think.
Oh, that's good.
That's how I would describe it. So okay. So you come back from England. That's when you get with the label that puts out the laptop EP.
Yeah, no, they put out Radio Pet Fencing.
Radio Pet Fencing, and then you come back and you get an offer from this American label.
Yeah, I came back and then Tom was like, "This what you're doing is real cool. Why don't we like, you can hear the difference between Radio Pet Fencing and the laptop EP in terms of production.
Yeah,
it's the first time like working with the guy who produced Deja, Entendu, and all the brand new records. This guy Mike Sapone. I sat down with him for 3 days and we made that EP. Mm-hmm. But his mixing ability and his ear, like we created something that was a lot more polished but still kind of quirky. And that was still, and the songs like Signing Emo and stuff where I kind of was like making fun of their whole world was it was fun because I felt very like the ideas in my head. I'd never worked with a producer. I'd literally done it all myself. And so it was like that EP then Sideshow, it was an American label, put it out, and then that was back in the day where like you had a different distributor in every country. Like we had a Japanese distributor, Australian distributor, and then we started making the videos for that, and and that was the start of it all. And then I took a year off college and went on tour with Gym Class Heroes before anyone heard of them. The show where they got signed was that Pete Wentz came to was in Anaheim in 2004 with them, and there was like probably 5 people there, and Pete Wentz stayed, left for us, but was there for Gym Class Heroes.
There for Gym Class Heroes.
Signed him that night.
Wow.
So that was
that's wild.
I was like, and then we toured Say Anything of that summer, and they blew up, and
that's a good bill.
That was tight.
I could see that.
That was
working really well.
It was called the Absolute Punk Tour.
Mm-hmm. I remember that site. I used to go to that site pretty frequently. So that kind of gets you in with like the bands of that scene is working with Tom, and then the right samples with the brand with the right rock samples. Yeah,
it was all about his idea was like, if he had the ability to help clear this stuff, so we weren't going to get sued for it.
Yeah,
by friendships he had, and that led eventually to stuff like Warped Tour, and like being in that scene, I guess, and also trying to be as nice as I could, and really give stuff away for like the things that in that era was really worked to my benefit. And then Nerdcore came along, and I started working with all those dudes and met that scene, and
like MC Chris and Frontalot and Mega Ran.
And everyone in that world, and then I just started hitting the road with them, and we found whenever we all went on tour, it worked. So.
How'd you hook up with Patent Pending? The reason I ask is because I feel like of the few bands we have cross sections with, that's a pretty specific one. I think I mentioned to you briefly, they came and played a show when I was in high school at at an armory with a bunch of local bands, and they were like, the first thing I remember is this was when Michael was still the lead singer, but like Joe, like he got the whole crowd to be like, all right, everybody, he got the whole crowd to like put their hands in like we were a baseball team before the set started. And I was like, oh, okay, you're the real deal. and I've followed them ever since. How'd you meet up with those guys?
In 2007, Suburban Legends, they heard me somehow, and it's and I was the first band, and then it was Patent Pending, then them on this ridiculously, absurdly long tour. It was like, dude, it was like 11 weeks.
Yeah, that's a long time to be out.
2007 was like January, February, March of 2007, and we were just on the road. And fools were not checking for us, you know? These shows, we'd be playing for 3 people, 5 people, and the tour was just endless. But, you know, it's some of the happiest memories of my life, because out of that tour, I built a friendship with them and Suburban Legends, and the Robot Kills song, Joe co-wrote that, and then they played it, and then the Aquabats guy, Christian Bat Commander, sang it. And that came out of the fact that, like, we were in the trenches because in 2007, ska was not cool again.
Right.
And it was already, like, played out, and, like, but Suburban Legends put on such a great show that, like, in the towns where they played, we had a great turnout.
Nice.
And they were always very generous to me, but Patent Pending, I rode in their van. That's why.
Oh,
and
nice.
so I split gas with them, and they put up with, like, gosh, I was a bit out of control, but it was fun, man. I mean, Joe and I really became good friends, and you're right, they are great performers, and I think having him sing, he's a natural front man, you know, Joe.
Definitely. I remember when that switch happened, being a little worried about how it was gonna work, like with any big changes in your favorite bands, like but then, like, they put out that EP that was like Michael fronting some of the songs and Joe singing some of the songs, and again, he is, if you think what's a rock and roll frontman like, Joe Ragasa is that guy. He's, like, you know, super high energy, and, like, just, again, he's there to we're all gonna have fun, and everybody has fun at the show.
And super, super sweet. And it's crazy how they've, by virtue of their work with Bowling for Soup, they've just crushed it in England.
Yeah.
Their overseas fan base is insane, man. Like, so many Patent Pending shirts, and, like, they call them patent pending over there. But that's sick, man, to see them have that success with just on the fact that their show is so great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. That's cool. You know them. Everyone, and if you don't know Patent Pending, check them out. They're incredible.
Yeah, if you love high energy pop punk, they're your jam.
And they write great hooks. Like
oh yeah,
Joe is a
hooks
great songwriter.
Yeah, hooks for days. Like trying to think some like Douchebag is an incredibly catchy song from I think their second album.
How about Mario? You're a next level, bro.
Oh my god, that song is so insanely catchy. Yeah. I love that. That
they
song's
would
so
just
fun.
do pop songs that didn't sound like punk. They would just do, like, whatever genre. Like, that was cool. They just didn't care.
Yeah. They're just doing what they like, and it's working. I love stuff like I love bands like that. Like, I want to hip you to there's a Japanese rock band that I got really into because they did the soundtrack for a movie I love. They're called Radwimps.
Okay.
They kind of do whatever they want. They have a lot of jazzy rock songs. They've got some very emotional, like, pop punk songs. They got some really emotional 6-minute long piano centric ballads.
Cool.
They've got some, like, songs that wouldn't sound out of place, like next to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they got this one song where he raps in Japanese. I have no idea what the words are, but it's so fresh.
That's cool.
It's so good.
Radwimps,
yeah, they're really good. They're on iTunes.
Cool.
So I kind of want to get into some of, like, the records. This has been awesome, by the way. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm trying, Lars.
You're good.
Dude, this has been like a dream come true. If I had known 12 years ago in that bar in Baltimore that you were gonna sit in my house, I would have been like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. Like, holy shit. What, man, there's just I feel like I could just.
Can I tell you the CP's story behind that?
Yeah, tell me the CP's story.
So CP's, people who are listening might not know what that is. On Robot Kills, my first track, I talk about how I tried to take a picture with DMC, but the phone didn't save it. And I say, oh, it's tricky, because they have that song, It's Tricky. And I go...
Yeah, he didn't actually say it, but if he did, it would have been good for comedy purposes. CP's, yeah.
My friend Craig, who was the drummer in Amphoteric, would talk about how you could, if you did something horrible to someone, like let out all the air of their tires or steal all their mail, you can always get away with it by saying, "Oh, I did it for CPs, comedy purposes." So that was a joke. He'd always during practice he'd be like, hypothesize the worst thing you could do, and they'd be like, "But you did it for CPs." So he got away with it. So then that became part of our language. And so I put that on the record just like spontaneously, not realizing that like CPs, people don't say that. That was like within my group of friends. And then it became like, you know what I mean? That's like
totally,
slang reinvented. Now you mentioned it. I think that's funny.
No, my girlfriend and I are just like anytime one of us dishes out like a sick burn to the other, it's like, oh, it's for CPs.
It takes away the pain of something horrible.
Yeah, it clarifies the intention immediately. So it's like, oh, okay, I will readjust.
Tight.
So I'm curious now about the kind of I like that I feel like we've kind of talked a little bit about like the how-tos of DIY entertainment. A little bit. Couple of things I'm curious about now, because I know you're on Patreon and you'd put songs out on Patreon. Do you think you're gonna focus more on singles the way Weird Al has talked about he's going to, instead of putting out another LP? Or do you think you'll do albums and then the Patreon functions as more of like the mixtape in between albums?
Patreon, I'm gonna like make sure that that stays mostly 99% only if you're on Patreon can you get those songs. And that's like, like I record them largely myself. They're less expensive to produce, but I think they're still like as good sounding. I do them more like they can be more topical, which is why the single format. But like on June 22nd, I'm putting out a EP, a Roger Rabbit themed EP, because it's the 30th anniversary of that movie. It's my favorite movie. So like I'm doing like a short album then, and Megaran and I did an album that's coming out later this year. So I will still do albums, but like I probably won't do another like full length. Like Zombie Dinosaur LP was full length album of like many topics. I want to do like shorter themed projects, like like an author, like a Shakespeare album or another Poe EP, like, but not like, the mixtape thing is going to be on the Patreon. Like, so I think that people with attention spans and stuff, it has to have a specific reason for someone to listen to a full record.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's also expensive to do
and the songs kind of have to, they got to be a little more evergreen compared to. I can relate to this so much being a comedian, because I'll have really great topical joke and then it's gone. You got to get rid of it.
You can be dated if you do the same thing. Like this Signing Emo song, man, like that. I mean, I always have to, if I ever play that, I kind of have to joke about, oh, let's pretend it's 2004, ha ha ha. But the ska song works because it was already a song about the 90s written 10 years later. So doing a song about the 90s is ironically more timeless than a song about emo, but maybe that will change in a few years.
Yeah. I'm very curious like where the pop culture, popular music zeitgeist will be in a few years, because John Mulaney kind of said this in his SNL monologue recently. So many popular songs now are about taking back the night. Like there's all these like live forever club dance songs right now that are super popular. But like what will pop music look like in 5 years? Is guitar centric music ever going to be popular the way it was again? I wonder about this stuff.
I guess I wonder too. I think things just go in cycles, and I think now it's a lot about nostalgia, and you know what I mean? Like that Portugal the Man single is very like nostalgic 60s sounding.
Very.
But it also sounds timeless, and I think, or like Kendrick Lamar and stuff, or Childish Gambino, like it's hip hop that sounds like classic 90s hip hop,
Yeah.
It's huge, and it's like, okay, so I don't know. I really don't know, and I think for me, like trying to parody or make specific references to certain genres, I have no idea how to do that now. Whereas like when I started, it was like, oh, here's my crunk song, here's my emo song, here's a thrash song about mall culture, and now it's like, that's what I run into with the album process now. It's like, well, I'll just talk about my life. I'm 35 and I love books, and this is my life, and I don't yeah, it's like the zeitgeist is a very confusing thing to tap into, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Right on. One more technical rap question.
Yeah.
I hear and then this will be, I think it'd be a great button for the whole interview. So in terms of talking about like rappers the way you might talk about like the way someone plays guitar, I hear the word flow used a lot to describe a rapper's delivery. And I think in one of your IACP videos, you compared it to you might have compared it to the way like someone plays guitar, like their vibrato.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are some rappers now that you kind of take inspiration from, and who's somebody that I don't know about, maybe I don't know about, that is a really good example of like a really like flow wise a really strong rapper?
Well, I mean, I've really been listening to a lot these days of this Florida group called Suicide Boys. Have you heard of them?
No, I haven't.
It's like the S is like dollar signs, and they work with some artists, like there's this guy Puya and this guy Fat Nick. And Puya's flow is very like Bone Thugs and Harmony, triplet, like the Tech Nine, the Chop style, but it's very melodic too. Like he'll do a whole 16 bars and it will have like a very clear melody, you know, to it. And their stuff is kind of like, it's a little bit like, you know, it's like party music, a little nihilistic and dark, but it's really dope, and it makes me like really excited to get up and face the day. And yeah, like all that stuff. Like there's a guy named Ghost Main also who's got a very cool like sound. And I think the rappers now, it's like you got to rap quickly, or you got to have a unique style. You've got to have an interesting tonality to your voice. And then they have like a whole theatrical element, like it's not like ICP, but their videos are very like creepy and weird, and like the kids are moshing, and it's like the next generation of punk thrash rap, but it's really good, really, really good. I think you'll appreciate them.
Suicide Boys.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna check that out. And final thing, speaking of flow, I feel like in the past couple of years, there's this I call it the Drake rhythm. There's that da 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 da. That sort of like stutter beat. Does that have a name?
Like the Migos flow. Like Migos do that too. I guess it's called an anapest. That's like that's the word for that. The sun did not shine. It was too wet to play. So we sat in the house on the cold wet day. The cat in the hat and you know what I mean? Or like the Addams Family. They do what they want to do, say what they want to say. The MC Hammer Addams Family rap.
Yeah.
And that's the anapestic tetrameter. So yeah, an anapest is da-da-da. And so that's like the flow of the triplets. It's the triplets that you hear in Migos. I saw this really funny video yesterday. This dude is doing, you know, Walk It in My Pocket by Dr. Seuss. And he's doing over a Migos beat, and it fits so perfect. It's like, there's a walk it in my pocket. Da-da, da-da. It sounds like a perfect modern rap thing. I think it's a staccato thing about the SoundCloud thing where it's just like being weird and like being crazy, right? But it's also very formulaic too.
Yeah.
And it's always, you know, I think that is popular because it's, I don't know why it's popular, man. I think it just sounds cool, and it's like, it's technical, but it's lazy at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's precisely laid back, and I guess if you're in a dark room late at night with a lot of lights and you've had a couple, it's easy to kind of sway to, but it also keeps your attention. Maybe, I don't know. And
it's it's people want to escape more than ever now, and I think that like that's the mainstream side of hip hop. But I really loved Lil Peep, and I thought that was like very sad when he passed away. You know, the dude overdosed last year. Like, I was really loving how he mixed the emo stuff with the trap stuff, and his singing. It was just genius. But the fact that he's singing about all the drugs he was doing, and like no one, you know, it's like, I don't know. I think that there's a danger in living the lifestyle that you manifest. And now with pills and stuff, like I think it's scarier than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
To be a young person who thinks that you have to live that life to, you know what I mean? To be real.
Yeah, absolutely. And to tie it all together, which is part of why I love ICP, and that their substance of choice is a very specific regional soda.
Right. Yeah.
I love everything about that. Like, they've made soda very cool to me.
And the fact that it's inexpensive soda.
Yeah.
So you can buy lots of it.
Exactly. It is the soda of the working class, the scrubs, as they would say. MC Lars, thank you so much for doing this, man.
I enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed talking to you.
Peace.
Just a really great dude overall, and a really awesome, fun chat with a guy who just loves music, loves talking music, and has been an inspiring figure to me and whose work I've enjoyed for a long time. It was really great to get to chat with Lars. So if you guys enjoyed that, check out Lars on iTunes and Patreon. All of his stuff is really solid. You will not be disappointed. If you guys like the show, you can subscribe on iTunes or on Stitcher. Give us a rating. I would greatly appreciate it. And you can follow me on Twitter at ComicWillCarry. Keep an eye out for my upcoming stand-up dates. And if you want to see when I'm going to be performing next, you can go to my website, willcarreyisfunny.com. That is WILLCAREY isfunny.com. I'd love to see you guys at a show, and thank you again for listening, and I will see you next week between Awesome and Disaster.